One of the things that people watch for in the State of the Union address every year is not just what the president has to say specifically about what the State of the Union is. The president pretty much always says it's great. The other thing people watch for is what the president's speech says about the state of the president. How's the president doing? Can you tell from the speech how the president is doing in this point in his or her presidency? Well, one notable feature of this year's State of the Union from our famously cool, calm, and collected President Barack Obama was that at that speech, the state of him, the state of the president, seemed kind of psyched. At least he definitely seemed happy to be there.
Tonight, I ask every American who knows someone without health insurance to help them get covered by March 31st. Help them get covered. Moms, get on your kids to sign up. Kids, call your mom and walk her through the application. They'll give her some peace of mind, and plus she'll appreciate hearing from you.
Pause for extra laughter. Did you like that one? I thought that one up myself. Call your mom. I don't know why it feels like a surprise to say, but it seems notably like President Obama was having fun up there at the State of the Union. He was loose, he was joking around, and it wasn't just that night. In the 2 days since he gave that speech, President Obama has been out traveling around the country, and still, he's just sounding like he's having a whale of a good time being president right now.
At the State of the Union, I was going to start out by saying the State of the Union is cold. But I decided that was not entirely appropriate. Now, I only finished 12 hours ago, so these remarks will be quicker. And I need some time to pick up a snow shovel and one of those 50-pound bags of dog food for Bo and Sonny. I was told I'd get a big screen TV, too, for the Super Bowl coming up. The 80-inch. Say 60 is not enough, huh? You got to go 80. It is funny, though. I was looking, you know, you can buy a sofa, a chocolate chip cookies, and a snorkel set all in the same. The sofa didn't surprise me, but the snorkel set, now that was impressive. Although I do want to ask, who's snorkeling right now? How many of those are you guys selling?
President making jokes about the weird stuff you can buy at Costco in very large quantities. He went on to say that he was thinking about buying a 10-pound bag of pretzels and 500 golf balls while he was there. Costco, of course, was one of the employers who the president shouted out by name at the State of the Union address for having made their own private decision as a company to raise the wages that they pay people who work at that company. The company benefits from having reduced employee turnover and so reduced training costs for new employees, in part because they pay a lot. Because they start their cashiers and the people who stock their shelves at $11.50 an hour, which is not a ton of money. You're not going to get rich on that, but it's better than your average grocery store. And it works for Costco as a business. The president at the State of the Union also shouted out a little company called Punch Pizza in Minneapolis. He invited to the speech the owner of Punch Pizza on the right there, who just raised his employees' wages, and one of Punch Pizza's young employees, who the president said helps make the dough. Only now he makes more of it. Get it? Dough, like both ways? Yes. Whether or not you like a happy president, or whether or not you think the president is good at this kind of humor that he's been doing a lot of this week, he does seem to be in a good mood, specifically when he was talking about this whole minimum wage thing, which was unexpectedly sort of the focus of the State of the Union address and definitely has been the focus of all his remarks since. And maybe the reason the president is so over the moon when he's talking about the minimum wage issue is because what the Democrats have decided to do on this issue, what the president announced at the State of the Union on this issue, is kind of a killer political move. Because, yeah, it's politically advantageous for Democrats to pick a fight with Republicans in Congress over the minimum wage. Americans generally like the idea of raising the minimum wage, and so they will side with Democrats if Democrats and Republicans are having a fight about that. But in a fight between Democrats and Republicans in Congress, any fight about any subject, we know how it ends, right? If it has to happen through Congress, it doesn't happen. Nothing happens. We've been seeing that for 2 years now. And so just being on the right side of that fight is never going to be resolved, right? And that only gets you so far. What the Democrats have decided to do differently this year, on this issue, this year, what the president announced at the State of the Union this year, and what he is now going around the country campaigning on, is the idea that the fight over what people get paid at work, the fight over wages, the fight over the minimum wage, is not just a federal fight that happens in Congress. Turns out it's a fight that happens everywhere. It's a decision for every business owner, from Punch Pizza-size businesses in Minneapolis up to Costco size, up to the biggest employers in the country. The president defined himself as essentially an employer when he announced his executive order to raise the minimum wage for people who work for federal contractors. So if you want a contract with the federal government, the head of the federal government, the president, says you can have that contract, but in order to get that contract, you're going to have to pay your workers at least $10.10 an hour. And so every CEO, every employer now has that decision to make. Also, every mayor, every governor, the head of every agency that has control over how much its people earn an hour. The political fight over the minimum wage is now everybody's political fight. And it is already starting to work. In Missouri, in the city of St. Louis, the mayor responded to the president's State of the Union by announcing a rise in the minimum wage for people who work for the city of St. Louis. He released a statement saying, "I hope other employers will follow the president's example. The city of St. Louis will. Tomorrow I will ask the personnel director and the Civil Service Commission to amend the compensation regulation to ensure all part-time employees receive a minimum of $10.10 per hour." In the New York area, the president's call for raising the minimum wage dovetails with an ongoing campaign to raise the wage that's paid specifically to people who work at the New York City area airports. There are two New York airports at LaGuardia and JFK, and one airport that is considered to be in the New York area, but it's in Newark, New Jersey. And you know who decides what the minimum wage is for people who work at those three New York area airports? It's these guys. Remember them? The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Yes, same guys. It's the Port Authority of Chris Christie bridge scandal fame. The New York Daily News has been pressing and pressing and pressing recently for airport workers at the three New York area airports to get a raise, pressing the Port Authority to do something about that because they can. Well, after the State of the Union, it worked. Kind of. The executive director of the Port Authority, who was not appointed by Chris Christie, he's on the New York side, so he was appointed by Andrew Cuomo, the Democratic governor of New York. The executive director of the Port Authority just sent this letter calling on the airlines who operate at those airports to immediately effect an increase in the hourly wage paid to the lowest paid employees at the airport, with a phase-in to, say it with me now, that magic number, $10.10 per hour. Quote, "The Port Authority is prepared to use every tool at its disposal. To achieve these goals, the Port will enforce these changes through revisions to terms and conditions of agreements with the airlines. Earning good wages and providing proper training increases job loyalty, reduces turnover, and improves customer satisfaction. This is something that cannot wait. Quote, I look forward to working with all of you in bringing the Port Authority's airports into the 21st century." That went out basically simultaneous with the State of the Union address. The New York Daily News promptly declared victory in their Fight for Fair Wages campaign. But now it is more than just this newspaper celebrating and the Port Authority taking action. Now it is a huge political fight for New York and New Jersey, because the Port Authority's decision to raise the minimum wage for people who work at the airports was made by the New York side of the Port Authority. And it turns out they couldn't get the New Jersey side to go along with them. So the New York side, the side appointed by Andrew Cuomo, the Democrat, they're the ones who are demanding that people who work at the airports get a raise. So people who work at LaGuardia and JFK in New York are probably going to get a raise. But the other local airport is over the border in New Jersey. And the Chris Christie appointees at the New Jersey side of the Port Authority have decided they are not going along with this. So there's these three airports within a few miles of each other. They're all under the same agency. The two New York ones, everybody gets a raise. The New Jersey one, no. No minimum wage increase for you. And so, ergo, politics. The New York Daily News posted this editorial this afternoon. Quote, Chris Christie says drop dead. Governor Christie is giving airport workers the shaft despite Governor Andrew Cuomo's timely push to raise their salaries.